Okay, fuck it. Let's get straight to the point. The last 16 years of Star Trek have produced nothing that a person with more than one working brain cell could call watchable. And who am I to tell you this? If you've clicked on this video, you've probably seen the abomination that Paramount calls Star Trek nowadays. To make my standpoint clear from the get-go, I think it's trash, and everyone else knows it's trash too. Anybody who says otherwise must have seen different shows than I did.
Time, with its infinite sense of humor, will always fold upon itself like an origami chicken.
What the fuck? The one exception is Picard Season 3, which is decent. But let's be real. We wouldn't have needed Season 3 of Picard if Paramount just hadn't raped TNG's corpse to begin with. But here we are, I guess. On the internet, Star Trek's downfall has already been discussed and analyzed in spectacular fashion for over a decade now. Some of these people try to explain Star Trek's drop in quality with the argument that the people behind the shows are trying to reach younger audiences that can't get anything from the old format. But if that were the case, I, as a 22-year-old with the attention span of a dead goldfish, should be hooked. But I hate the new stuff with a fucking passion. So clearly something is not working out here. And just for the record, I legitimately have never met anyone my age, or at all, who has watched any of the new Star Trek shows. Which is a good thing, I guess. But out of all these shitty shows, the one plot point that I hate the most was introduced way earlier. Back in 2009, when J.J. Abrams went through a midlife crisis and thought he could make a Star Trek movie despite seemingly not knowing or caring about the property. In Star Trek 2009, the motivation of the generic supervillain, I won't even bother researching his name right now, is the destruction of Romulus by a supernova. For me, this moment encompasses everything that went wrong with modern Star Trek. The way the destruction of Romulus is handled is so dumb that I truly believe the franchise never hit a lower low in terms of shitting on its own legacy, and I say that, having endured most of the stuff that came afterwards.
Please, my friend. Choose to live.
Anyway, I was like 14 when I first saw Star Trek 2009, and even then I knew that I had just witnessed something stupid, and here's why. The Romulan Star Empire is a star empire, and therefore encompasses many stars and a massive region of space. There are also multiple other systems and planets mentioned across all the Star Trek films and series that are populated by the Romulans or are part of the Empire. After the Dominion War, the Romulans were the second most powerful force in the Alpha Quadrant and the only ones who could realistically match the influence of the Federation. So you're telling me that the destruction of one singular planet completely destroyed the entire Empire? Like instantly, how it's shown in Star Trek Picard? You're telling me that all Romulans are now refugees and that happened practically overnight? Like how? What happened to all the other planets? And what happened to the Romulan fleet? Did the writers just forget about the second biggest fleet in the whole fucking quadrant? Don't tell me Alex really thought the Empire only consisted of one singular planet. But most importantly, how the actual fuck did the Romulans not notice that their own sun would go nova? I mean, we right now would notice if our sun were going to go nova with technology from more than 50 years ago. And by the way, a star going nova is not something that just happens. You know this thousands of years in advance. What crack-smoking imbecile wrote this and who approved this shit? Just to put things into further perspective. By the time the Romulans had left Vulcan and settled on Romulus, they should already have noticed that the star of the system they were settling in was going to explode. The best part is that in the movies and the following shows, there is literally no explanation given for any of this. I swear, in Picard Season 1, they talk about the actual event for less than 2 lines in total, but I will not further hurt my brain by double-checking. Instead, the series focuses more on Picard's personal role and feelings during and after the event, which is the complete opposite of what the real Picard would focus on when talking about this. And if you're going to take a more personal approach, at least make it actually thoughtful, not like, I'm 14 and this is deep, if you know what I mean. In general, the logistical or political situation after Romulus's destruction is barely explained, and is just boiled down to Federation bad now, which is not how Star Trek works, by the way. This is especially frustrating because, as much as I hate the idea of Romulus getting destroyed, since the Romulans are by far the coolest antagonists in Star Trek, there's actually some real storytelling potential in that situation. For example, the destruction of Romulus could have been portrayed as an attack that caught an otherwise highly secure and deeply paranoid empire completely off guard. That would carry real weight. especially given the Romulans' reputation for secrecy, suspicion, and constant internal scheming. It could mirror a situation similar to when the Tal Shiar was infiltrated by the Dominion during the Dominion War. The success of the attack on Romulus might even be explained as a consequence of the long-term damage inflicted on the Empire's intelligence and security apparatus after the Tal Shiar's destruction. Let's assume for a moment a terror attack or a similar scenario. We know from that one episode of DS9 that manipulating a star is extremely difficult, even with Star Trek-level technology. So artificially creating a supernova to wipe out one planet seems equally illogical as the supernova happening naturally, especially because, I don't know if J.J. Abrams knows this, but in Star Trek, a single Federation ship is all you need to destroy a planet or make it unlivable. I mean, let's be real. The reason why they chose to get Romulus destroyed by a supernova is just because a big explosion looks cool and even the last inbred idiot in the cinema understands the plot. So for my own sanity, let's say there was a terror attack, and Romulus got destroyed relatively fast, with or without a supernova happening. Then, instead of instantly destroying the Empire, the loss of the Romulan homeworld would trigger massive political change within it. But as it is in the real world, these changes would not all be instantaneous. They would have long-lasting ripple effects for decades. Judging from how the Empire is written in the previous shows, I'd imagine what's left of the Romulan Senate would at first try somehow to hold everything together. It is also logical to assume the Romulans had a contingency plan for events like this. From what we know of the Empire, the immediate reaction would likely be increased paranoia. At first, the Romulans could try to downplay or hide their weakness in front of the Federation, but the loss of their homeworld would not be something that could be kept a secret for long, and would obviously eat through many of the Empire's resources. The political situation would also be very unstable, perhaps with different factions having different ideas on how to proceed. Here you could draw a parallel to the Roman Empire, or the real world in general, and have some popular senators, backed by the Romulan military, try to undermine or overthrow the Senate. Another idea would be to introduce slave revolts in Romulan colonies that take advantage of the destabilization. This could play into the theme that violent suppression can't hold an empire together forever, and would show the contrast between the Romulan Empire and the Federation. Instead of portraying the Federation as the bad guys who refuse to help, like in modern Star Trek, you could make it so the Romulans are too paranoid or proud to ask for help in the aftermath, acting like a wounded animal and threatening war with the Federation, even though they could not sustain it for long. One of the described events may ultimately lead to the collapse of the Romulan Empire, though such an outcome would likely follow an extended period of decline spanning at least several years. Obviously, all these ideas on how you could try to fix the mess, that is the destruction of Romulus, are fairly basic and not fully thought through, but that isn't really the point I'm trying to make. I mean, I wrote this shit during a boring university seminar, and I'm not particularly good at writing anything, but even I managed to come up with at least something. So my point is that, with actually competent writers, there were ways to make the destruction of Romulus genuinely interesting. And to be clear, I wouldn't expect any film or show to just information dump the whole backstory of Romulus's destruction on the viewer, especially if it isn't the main plot of the show or movie. But you could sprinkle bits and pieces of information here and there, and voila, you would have given modern Star Trek some much-needed world building. Another storytelling opportunity I forgot to mention would be exploring what Romulus actually meant for the Romulan people. Romulans are ultimately Vulcans who left Vulcan during a political dispute, so you could explore what the destruction of Romulus means for them in relation to their original homeworld. This could finally bring a satisfying payoff to the many TNG episodes that explored the relationship between Romulus and Vulcan. Sadly, I think the possibility that neither Alex Kurtzman or J.J. Abrams even know that Romulans and Vulcans are related is higher than we all would like to admit. I mean, that is the only fucking explanation I got for the Romulans with swords, that act like 12-year-olds trying to impersonate Pablo Escobar. Anyway, to wrap this up, there were definitely far more interesting options for the destruction of Romulus than Monkey Brain makes supernova go boom, but there's no way to undo that now. So I suggest just denying Romulus was ever destroyed in the first place by telling yourself that everything released after Enterprise was just a bad dream. Goodbye.